Hello everybody and welcome to GameGuru Max live broadcast number 54. And as promised, I'm going to show you stuff. Internal development stuff that isn't assets. So we're going to do a run of Friday builds that's mostly about functionality. I think you've had enough assets now. We got over 1,000, so I think that's a good starting point. So switching over to functionality, you'll start to see more in the realms of game making rather than pretty visuals. Obviously more visuals of course along the way, but I want to start showing you some functions now. And I also want to show you something that was actually released last week, but I didn't get to properly demonstrate it, or I don't think I properly demonstrated it. So I want to show you a little bit of that. And of course, you can then discover it if you didn't know that we'd actually done the thing that I'm going to show you. But the main thing I'm going to talk about is something really cool. It's something that long-standing GameGuru community members have probably been wanting for years, and we're going to introduce it in GameGuru Max. But before that, just want to give you the format of today's show. You get to ask your questions. If you're lucky enough to join in live, please do ask your questions. Stick a question mark at the end and I will be able to answer them towards the end of this session. The ones I don't get to, I will absolutely answer in the GameGuru forum threads along with a recording of this broadcast. So just want to make sure everybody can hear me. So I'm going to go over to my second screen, have a look for the immortal answer. Thank you, Synchro62. Yes, we can hear you perfect. Okay, I am going to run the software and I'm going to show you some things. So the first thing I want to show you is a new thing that we are calling smart objects. What are smart objects? Well, you may remember years ago, like 5 years ago, I was talking about something called composite entities. The idea that you can have multiple objects and other things all working together to form a single object. For example, a candle which has a flame coming out of it and emits a light. Wouldn't it be great if that was just one object instead of you having to manually place those three things all the time? Now, you've probably noticed our groups system, and you've probably watched the video on the groups system, which was sort of like alluding to this idea that you can group things together. But I think it only went halfway. So we're completing that journey by allowing you to save your groups and use them whenever you want, in whatever level you want. And the output of saving a group is a smart object. It's a conglomeration of objects, and I'm going to demonstrate it. Now, this is quite unusual because usually on Wednesday I'm demonstrating things I kind of finished up Monday, Tuesday, and so you get to play with them on Friday. This is a little different in that I am still working on the smart object system. So you might see a few wires hanging out, but by Friday those will be closed up and you'll have a nice functioning smart object system. So best way to do it is to show it. So I'm going to go to my library, find a candle. This is just a static. See, that's not what you'd normally have, is that, and then you'd have to add all the bits and bobs. But a nice little candle there. Now we want a particle that comes out of it. So I'm just going to put a particle marker there. We'll select some flame, maybe a little bit higher, please. Like there, and then maybe scale it down a little bit, like that. I'm not going to be too precious. Then add a light. So we'll drop in a light. Move that light up a little bit. Maybe set it to orange. Reduce the range of it, so it's like that. And maybe set it as flame light, so it's a lot of flickery light. And maybe drop the intensity a little bit. So there you go. That's our three objects. One object, two markers, two game elements, sorry. And if we highlight them, you see they're highlighted here. We can actually click this, group the objects together, which is now, and if those who are familiar, yes, that's a group object, you can drag that in. But look, if you're in advanced mode, you've now got a fourth button called Save Group. So we can click Save Group, give it a name, so I'm just going to call it Candle, like that. And then we get the preview, so we can set up our thumbnail and keywords. So I'm going to go for a red purpley thing, let's say candle, lit, fire, flame, just for some meta tags, and then add to the object library. It will be added to the users folder, so it's already there. And then when you select it, this is the bit that I'm going to do next, so use your imagination. It would appear here in the top as an object. At the moment it's appearing here as a group, so if I drag that one in, you'll see that's the thing we've just created. I can drag in another one, and another one, but you get to the idea that when it's a fully functioning smart object, it would appear up here just like a regular object. And another thing as well, which I'm really pleased to be able to share, is we've now got hide game elements, so you can toggle the game element markers. And what that means is, because these can clutter up your scene quite a lot, and sometimes you may just want to get rid of them so you've got a nice clean out scene. But this is kind of what you'd have as smart objects. As you can see, they carry around their light, they have the particles associated with them, and for all intents and purposes, it's a single object. It's a smart object. It's an object that has multiple behaviors. Think about it. The object can have a behavior logic system. The particle can have a logic system. The light can have a logic system. So this object actually has 3 scripts running on it as well. So you can actually have multiple logics overlaying. And I was alluding to the fact that you can add particles and you put, whoa, what's that? It's of course our particle system. So I remember before where it was pretty blank, but now if I drop in a particle, you'll see actually you've got some presets here. So I can choose all these different particles. It's a nice smoke one. You can obviously change things like the scale. Lots of that. And in some cases you can rotate the particles. The first 9 you get a sort of stock, but then you can do add new particle, and then you have a much larger library of particles to choose from. I'm going to go through these again, make sure that they're really great particles. And of course you can use the particle editor, which we're going to rename slightly for GameGuru Max to the particle toolkit. And you can create an infinite number of particles and get access to the huge library of particles that have been created for you in the particle editor. But it does mean, of course, you know, with the particle editor you can create exactly the particle effect that you want for your game, edit it, and then you can find it in this library, and then you can select it and add it to your shortlist. So let's say I wanted this smoke thin, and then add that. It adds it here, and then I can just use that, or I can use one of the earlier ones in the stock. And of course you can control things like, maybe you don't want to preview it in the editor, or you do want to preview it in the editor. Maybe it doesn't start when the level starts, but you can activate it later on, like a building that isn't on fire yet but will be soon according to your gameplay designs. And of course, whether the particle loops or not, an explosion will just need one effect, but smoke, you want it to keep going on and on and on. And then of course you can control things like the speed. So it's almost, you could actually freeze time if you want, or really fast smoke if it's steam, for example. And of course the opacity, you know, how strong do you want those individual particles to be rendered to the screen. And remember, these are volumetric particles, so they'll look really good in VR as well. So that's something that perhaps wasn't covered in last Wednesday's broadcast, and so I thought I'd make do and make a correction. So that's what I'd like to show you. Smart objects coming this Friday. You'll be able to play with these and obviously give us your suggestions on what you think about them, what you think is missing. But of course the powerful part of this is now we, the team at GameGuru Max Development Land, will be able to pre-prepare lots of objects as smart objects so you don't have to do it. So when we provide you a candle, we'll provide you a candle that has a flickering flame on it and a light. Buildings will already have their doors and windows attached with correct physics and lighting. So think of it as the next generation of an object, a game object that you can drag in. Complete not only with its logic now, but also additional effects, game elements, and potentially other objects attached, like picture frames on the inside of walls of rooms inside multiple buildings, etc. So I'm now going to go over to the questions to see if anyone's got anything worthy to say. Obviously we'll get through the hi, everyone can hear me, wonderful. Looking for a question mark. Okay, good stuff. Everyone can hear me fine. Looks like we have no questions. At last, group saving. Yes, I think Retro Game Vlog, you've been waiting like 6 years for it. So, you know, better late than never. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do with smart objects. What I like about it is that you can literally have 10 scripts all attached to the same thing, like a character, or a character sitting on a motorbike, that's sitting on a truck, that's sitting in a cargo container, and it's actually just one thing so you can drag out and then run the logic, and all crazy cool things happen. So yeah, I'm also interested to see what people do with it themselves. One of the early decisions was, do we make the smart objects like an internal thing? So we'll create it like in Notepad, and then you have a smart object. And I thought, well, no, people would want to create their own smart objects, surely. And then, of course, we're looking at the group system thinking, wait a minute, that group system's very similar to what we want to do with smart objects, so we combine the two. It remains to be seen whether you want to be able to save a group and then load a group and it appears and it stays inside the group section instead of appearing in the objects section. So that's something that we still need to think about, and that'll probably come out of the iterative phase until it just makes a lot of sense and very intuitive. So, questions please. Can we have prefabs, Lee? No, we can't have prefabs. Months later, but if you can have smart objects, ... Yeah, prefabs was a sort of a thing back in FPS creator days, kind of the word stuck. But yeah, we kind of had prefabs back then. They just weren't very good. I think I'm liking smart objects better. So this is a question from Ali Alami. It's what programming lang is this engine will use? It's Lua script. So if you wanted to script and program, you can use Lua script in order to create all your game logic. But GameGuru Max is going to be different. You will be able to create sophisticated logic for your game levels, and you will not need to program. You will not need to script. The whole idea is that anyone will be able to go in, dropping some stuff. The logic's already assigned. You can tweak the logic if you want to, but you don't have to code. You don't even have to understand that much about logic. Just drop things in and your game will start forming. But if you really wanted to, yes, you can drop down to the Lua programming language and script it line by line if that's your thing. But if you meant what is the engine written in, it's C++ with a lot of help from Wicked Engine for the graphics engine side, Bullet for the physics, ASIMP for the model importing capabilities. So we are using a lot of really great tools out there, and the one I'm working on right now, which I'll be able to reveal in weeks and weeks, not too many weeks to come, is the recast detour for pathfinding, but more on that cool thing when I've got something to show you and talk about as well. So looking for another question mark. It's getting close to the point where I'll start making models for GG again. Completely stopped making them for Classic, but now there's some decent progress with Max. I'll start making Max models. Thank you very much. Looking forward to those. And do let me know if you want to see something a little bit extra in the smart objects so your modelling can go that extra step. If you've got any ideas, please let me know. Here's a question. Can you demo the stacking objects system? Certainly can. GameGuru person. I think what we'll do is we'll go back to here, we'll go to add, we'll select a box. Do we have boxes? Yeah, we got a box. That's a nice little cardboard box, like so. And if you are in, let's have another cardboard box like that. If you are in this mode, which is move, object and find surface, look what happens. It actually gives you a ghost of where the object's going to be. So when you let go, that's where it is. If I drag it off, you'll see a ghost where it's now on the floor. So that's where it's going to be. And so that's the smart object system. It literally shows you how it's going to stack things. Simple, but I think it takes the guesswork out of knowing where your objects are going to be. So that's the stacking system. There's a few little tweaks that I still need to make, but I'm pretty happy with that. There's other stuff that is on the list, such as overlap detection. So there is literally no way you could do that. And the object will sort of push against it, like kind of pseudo-physics, so it stays outside of it. So that's an overlap thing that's also want to do. But yeah, by the time we've finished, the ability to move objects around and manipulate them will be super intuitive. I'm not sure you know this, but if you just don't click an object, you just grab the terrain, you can just move the camera like this. Again, it's all about what's the simplest way to get things done. Moving objects, moving the camera. Why have a zillion buttons up there? Why not make it super intuitive? So let's see if I can get the chat back. So hopefully that was a good demonstration of stacking objects. Here is a question. How about a duplicate project button? A duplicate project? Yeah, well, you just load in a game project and then save as, and just give it a different name, and it'll duplicate the entire project, all of title screens, the levels, all of the references, literally everything. And I'd actually recommend you do that if you're working on a big important game project. Save as different project files, lots of backups. Absolutely super critical, especially in the early days of a new piece of software. You'd kind of want to do that just to save and protect all the work you might have done. So here's a question mark at the end of a very long question. This is from Bellydos3D. If I create, for example, a candle of my own in Blender, then import it into Max, and add lights and smoke as a group, can I then save that out and sell my model with those as a group in the store? Yeah, the great thing about Smart Object is actually it's stored as an FPE. It's recognized as a regular object. It's just so yeah, you could collect all of your imports, create GameGuru Max objects out of them, including smart objects, and then just bundle them all up, and there you go. You've created them all. Of course you can sell them. Hopefully that answers your question. And there's some great stores out there, including the very cool Game Creator Store, which will be closely integrated into GameGuru Max. More on that when I've got something to show. Here's a question from KC Productions. When are we gonna see animations, functions and behaviors, and will there be blending between transitions? Yes, there will be blending between transitions. Characters already have a really excellent animation system and a great behavior system. I will just quickly show you a character. So an character. Let's go to the top. Pick Astra. I'll just pop it here. So you can actually see you've got animation already going on, and the bit that I'm actually working on in the background now is the AI system, which basically takes all the different animations that we want to use. You can assign them by name, and then in the behaviors you can play those animations simply by saying the name of the animation you want to play, and it will transition nicely between any two animations. So if you're currently walking, then when you blend into something completely different, it does an animation blend for you. And we've got some really other very interesting ideas how we can make that even cooler. In fact, well, I think we'll have one of the best animation systems in a modern games engine. But more on that when I've got something to show. Just checking out the clock. We're now 3 minutes past the 15-minute mark, so I like to keep myself in check, so I'm not wittering on for too many hours. So I think we'll answer a few more questions before I look for the last two, as is my tradition. Here's one from Synchro. Will smart objects work with dynamic ... light following character? Yeah, well, you can make smart objects out of literally everything. If you want to have a character that has a particle cloud of like disease, and maybe the character has a lantern, and then the light is emitting out of that lantern, that's a smart object. You know, you take all the individual pieces, you glue them together in clever ways, and it becomes a smart object. And why not? Why don't you just be able to select a really interesting character with lots of stuff stuck to it, drop it into your scene, press test level, and then voila, the character's doing lots of amazing things. That's kind of the whole point of Max. You don't have to build it all from scratch. You don't have to be a modeler. You can just find something in the library you like, drag it in, and it's instantly a game thing. It will do stuff in the game. And then if you want to change it, then we give you that option. So looking for a question, this is from 3Com. How is going to work the third-party particle editor with this we are locking here? Not a clue. Let me try and translate. How is it going to work with a third-party particle editor? Oh yeah, okay, so you've got your particle editor, you created your particle, there will be a new button which basically says export, and it exports it directly into the particle library of GameGuru Max. So you don't have to sort of mess about with intermediate files. It dumps it straight into GameGuru Max. So you basically Alt-Tab away from Particle Editor into GameGuru Max, then click on Add New Particle, and you instantly see the particle you've just created. It'll be that easy. Retro Game Bloke asks, will enemies be able to climb ladders? Yes, they definitely will, and climb other kinds of things. We have lots of ladders already now in our asset library, including our very cool watchtowers in the military collection. It would be an absolute travesty if players and characters couldn't climb those very cool ladders. So yeah, you'll be able to climb ladders. That's part of what I'm working on in secret right now. Not secret anymore, is it? Magical Fox, when will GameGuru Max be released? It is an open release date. We have no release date for you right now. As soon as we do, we will let everybody know. But thank you for that obligatory question. I think we've not escaped a broadcast without that being asked at least once. So hopefully that is not too disappointing an answer. Here's a big question from Kevin Hampson. Can the object highlighter thickness be reduced? Do you think it's do you think the highlighter's a bit too much? Maybe we put something in the editor settings. So some people like the highlight, some people want it thinner, maybe some people want it thicker, maybe some want a different colour. Please let me know in the GameGuru forums later on if people like the thickness or everyone says yes, it looks a bit preschool, let's get it a little bit more professionally. So please let me know what people think of that. Looking at the clock, we're now pushed past the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to pick the next two questions from people who've not asked a question yet, and the rest I will tackle in the GameGuru forums along with this recording. So let's see if we can find someone who hasn't asked a question yet. Question. Here's a question mark from Assets Junkie. Has there been any thought about adding physical camera to GameGuru that can be moved around? Yeah, sort of. Cutscene sort of things. But no, there's no plans to do sort of camera control, disembodied camera. There are Lua commands which let you do that, but you got to do it yourself in script. GameGuru Max will not have such like a camera dolly situation out of the box, but I am prepared to be convinced otherwise. Please let me know in the forums. And here's another unique person asking their first question. Did you know you could use Fuse to create a character and then import those characters into GameGuru Max ? I did, actually. Our FBX import is coming along by leaps and bounds. I'm really pleased with it. It also detects all the animations in the Fuse file as well. It's not perfect, and we are not advocating that we fully support Fuse or fully support Character Creator or all those kind of things, but yes, we do support FBX up to a good point. And if you can get it into FBX, you could probably get it through the importer and into GameGuru Max. But we continue to work on the model importer all the time as new models are presented to us, and we need to sort of get the importer so it can figure out all of the nuances of that model so it works brilliantly and correctly and at the right scale and all the rest of it in GameGuru Max. But that's something that we remain vigilant of. But please do send us your models if you are allowed to under the license, if you find something that's not importing, because we do want to make sure we've got a great importer. So, sorry I couldn't get to any more questions, but I do not really want to ever go over that 30-minute mark. I think I've done it once or twice, and it makes for a very long broadcast, and I'm sure you've got lots of better things to do than listen to me witter on. As always, we'll be releasing what you see, probably a little better, on Friday. And anyone who pre-orders, we've currently got a discount at 25% at those who haven't got the pre-order. But anyone who is a pre-order user, they'll be able to get access to these builds every Friday, all the way through to release. So you get to play with all the things that I show off on Wednesday. So I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. As always, these are every Wednesday, so tune in next Wednesday at 4 PM British Summer Time if you want to hear me witter on a little bit more. And again, next week I'll be able to reveal more functionality, more cool things that stray away from assets, and more about cool game making stuff. So I hope you join me next Wednesday, and until then, I shall say thank you and goodbye.